Life, culture and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 with Neil Johnson on Vision.
Life, culture and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 on Vision.
Let's turn our attention to the Russian war and Ukraine. Almost a year into this dimension of the conflict, most of the headlines in mainstream media are focused on international efforts to update military and political manoeuvring. Well, on the ground in Ukraine, many are experiencing the trauma of war, and there's a struggle to survive in many regional areas. In eastern Ukraine, unemployment is widespread, and there's economic deprivation. Well, our guest today is working in Ukraine, where there is a sense of hopelessness and abandonment among the people. Pastor Sergey is joining us from Ukraine. He works with the Christian broadcaster FEBC, who have Christian stations broadcasting the gospel throughout Ukraine. Pastor Sergey, a special welcome along to 2020.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you. And greetings to you from Kyiv, Ukraine.
Sergey, let me ask you first of all, it's winter time and there's been challenges with missile attacks on energy installations and ways that the power grid has been upset. How are people surviving the cold?
Well, this is really a good question because people are trying to use all means that are possible to use. So we are buying generators or receive generators from European Union or from other countries. And also some people are installing some coal stoves even in apartments, although this is quite dangerous. And we had some cases when there were fire in apartments in high-store buildings because of that situation. So we are doing our best in order to heat our apartments and our houses and just survive. And at the same time, we're not going to surrender.
People are surviving, determined not to surrender. And with winter now not too far off, a little bit of a close, and that'll make a bit of a difference to the way the temperatures are so low. But we're hearing here in Australia there'll be a new fighting season, a new initiative that's likely to emerge from Russia as you emerge from the winter. Is that causing a consternation, any concern for Ukrainians?
Well, honestly, we are used to this in some degree. Yeah, so we are waiting for their new attacks. So of course we are concerned about this, but at the same time we are motivated to continue to defend our country and to continue to support each other as citizens of our country, and to support each other as people who are united together in fight with this enemy.
Sergey, I mentioned you are a pastor, and from day one you chose to stay and serve right there in the epicenter of the war, and even now you're separated from your family. How does your life look different today than it did a year ago?
Yes, you're right. I decided to stay in our capital, in our city, Kyiv, in order to serve my congregation and to another congregation and to different people who came to Kyiv and to refugees and to some people even in in one remote village that suffered a lot because of invasion of a Russian army. What can I say to you? That I'm thankful to my Lord that He gave me this opportunity and this honor to stay for all of this month in my country and serve Him and serve people, because I always felt presence of my Lord in my life, but since February 24, I could assure you, and I could tell you from the bottom of my heart that I've never experienced such supernatural presence of the Lord in my life and in life of my congregation. I cannot even explain this by words, but in spite of all of these fears, in spite of all of these dangers, in spite of all of these rocket attacks and sufferings, I could feel this powerful energy that Lord gives me through His Word. So even when I read Bible, Word of God, I receive such a support, such a motivation and power that just inspires me to do even more, in spite of the fact that I'm separated from my wife, from my family. But this is how you see. I am even trying to find words in order to depict this. This is just God's shalom in your soul, God's determination and motivation to continue. So during all of this month, I could say one thing. Now I know what does it mean. Name of the Lord Emmanuel, God with us.
God with us, and I know that listeners will be humbled to know that when you're in the midst of crisis, the peace of God gives you that ability to be able to recognize that His supernatural presence is so powerful. When you anticipate that there may be a missile that could hit your building any moment, you live your life, no doubt, differently. How is it affecting ordinary people who have decided to stay in Ukraine and who've reconnected with the church, who've come under your leadership, under your preaching? How has it affected them to know this extra peace of God?
Thank you. Yes, you're right, because in this kind of situations, in this kind of context, people begin to understand more fully our mortality. And we have this expression that during war, there are no atheists in trenches. So a lot of people are beginning to think about their own destiny, about their own life. What is the reason for me to be on this earth if I could die any moment? Especially these kind of questions I receive from our soldiers who are on front lines. And for example, recently I received several messages from one guy who is nearby Bakhmut. So this is eastern part of Ukraine where fights are taking place. And he told me that before war, he, as a young man, ignored his faith. And so he left church and decided just to live ordinary life as a non-believer. But when he was drafted into the army and when he faced all of these atrocities and he saw death of his comrades, he understood that the only hope is only in the Lord. And finally, currently he says that I found my faith again, and now he is trying to tell about Lord and about the relationship with the Lord to his comrades. And he told me that they're very attentive to him right now. And the same I could say about another soldier who wrote to me, and he said to me that this is so comforting when me and my comrades could hear these radio programs that you're producing from Kyiv, because they give us motivation, they give us hope, and they give us understanding what can we find in Jesus not only as a psychological auto training or support, but real life in Jesus in this time of war.
And you're one of the voices on FEBC Eurasia. We're talking about Christian radio in Ukraine and people receiving those messages. What sort of response is coming? What sort of feedback comes back to the radio ministry from people who are receiving these broadcasts?
People are crying. They're writing with tears, and they sent a lot of messages with their expression of gratitude, because a lot of them are in a condition of depression, and a lot of them are quite terrified of what is going on, and they do not see like some kind of hope if there is no God. And this kind of programs, they're like light in darkness and despair. So this is a really good time. Of course, we need to spread the gospel in any context, but I think that especially in the context of war, despair, fear, and so on. So that's why a lot of people are saying that this kind of programs, they give them this light in darkness of their life.
Pastor Sergey, you mentioned the soldiers losing comrades, dying in the trenches in that sense. And of course, each of those soldiers, if they're men, may be a husband, may be a father, and they're leaving loved ones. People are isolated. Is it particularly women who are dealing with the heartbreak of losing their loved ones?
Yes. For example, I had conversation with one woman. She lost her husband in a war, and she is in despair right now. But the only consolation that she could have is her faith in Jesus. Although she expresses her deep grief and she cries a lot and she posts a lot of pictures on Facebook right now, we could see that she is coping with this in the context of support that she could receive from different people who are incarnating support of Christ and love of Christ to her. And there are other women, and especially their children. They're also in deep grief, and this is time when we could really help them, not just to read them lectures or to try to explain why this happened to them or to their husbands, but just to incarnate Christ with our tears, with our hugs, with our support, and with our active listening to them.
We can only imagine the sort of grief that people are going through, but to have Christian radio ministry that comes over the airwaves must be an amazing comfort. Sergey, take us into, just briefly here, your day-to-day work. As I understand it, you've housed displaced people in your church, you've collected and distributed food despite the risk of being bombed, and you've taken opportunity to pray with people and with soldiers. What does your day-to-day activity look like?
Well, usually, of course, I'm broadcasting from our studio, from the heart of Kyiv. So I have everyday program from Monday till Friday. So 5 programs per week with spreading of gospel to people. And but this is just top of iceberg, I could say, the visible part of pastoral life. But usually I have meetings with people, not just face to face, but usually via Zoom or via telephone when I have counseling to them, when people are contacting me to have some conversations about life, about death, about depression, about their fears. And in this, I try to point them to the Lord and consolation and comfort that we could find in the Lord. And at the same time, there are times when people are calling in order to help them with their physical needs. And sometimes also I have opportunity with our soldiers in order to just listen, just hug them, just to pray for them. And from time to time, our church takes part in a volunteer ministry. For example,
Sergey, our line is breaking up a little here, and I just want to give special honour to you. It's our privilege today to be talking to you, a pastoral, spiritual leader's voice on the radio across Ukraine on the ministry FEBC. FEBC is one of those big Christian ministry broadcasters, and for listeners who would like to support the ministry of FEBC, there is an Australian office. Let me give the website to connect with FEBC in Australia. It's febc.org.au. They've distributed something like 50,000 prayer booklets to the public. They've counselled thousands of people a month, and they've supplied audio Bibles to soldiers. And you can be a supporter of FEBC, febc.org.au. Pastor Sergey, thank you so much for taking some time to share your thoughts and your heart with us today on 2020.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au. Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.